Welcome, it's Matterall again. We're talking about EVE Online. The date is August 8th, 2020. Well, today's going to be a big day. There's going to be, it's the first of, 4 Keepstars, I think, that are being destroyed. One's being put into armor right now, but there will be one destroyed within the half hour, actually. That's a J5A. Let's put that up. Then tomorrow, around the same time, 3 hours later, so about 1900, will be second Keepstar in IGE. That's former staging for Initiative. These are all in Fountain. And then the day after that will be Keepstar and CTEC. And these are all big systems. J5A is the bridge to Pureblind from Fountain. That's the original staging point where a lot of stuff was launched into the Northern Territories. So when that Keepstar goes down, that's a historic Keepstar. It's put up by the Culture. It was sold to the Imperium when the Fountain region was sold to the Imperium from the Culture. I think they made, do you remember how much they made? I want to say it was about 400 billion. Wasn't huge.
Sounds very cheap.
Yeah, it was very cheap.
That sounds about right. I remember it being really cheap in retrospect.
Afternoon all.
Afternoon. We're live on the air, just so you know. And then tomorrow at around 1800, 1900 is IGE. That was the Keepstar that the group retreated to. So the Initiative, their first back step was to stay in IGE, I believe. Or that's maybe where they staged for the war to begin with. Instead of J5, they staged in IGE. And so when they decided to move backwards, they went to CTEC-N, I believe, as their staging. So you can see that it's like one important system after another. Yeah, 28 minutes left. Thank you.
And it's the one coming up now that Killer was mostly excited about, right? It's the one he expects potentially could bring some fights, where the other ones might just be a bit of harassment and then just being otherwise left alone.
I think they may defend CTEC-N, but J5A I've heard is going to go undefended. At least that's what I've heard.
I thought Killer said that J5A was the armor timer that's most likely to actually bring some fights if you wanted to actually do a bit of punching back.
Well, the problem is that was based on the idea that they had, I think Billy said it as well, that they had assets in there that were important, a lot of dreadnoughts, but then we heard right after that that a lot of that was actually evacuated. So I don't think J5A is going to have a lot of trapped assets as people originally thought. They might, but there's no way to know. If there are, people won't admit it, and if there aren't, people won't believe that it's empty. So
are they all armor timers, or is it just the one armor timer?
They're all final timers. These are for the destruction of these structures.
Are you sure about that?
There's one armor timer going on, but I think that happened earlier this morning.
J5A is coming out of armor reinforce into structure vulnerability.
Okay, because
really?
Then
so
because Killer said that
okay.
It was an armor timer that he thought was going to be contested, right?
Okay, so my information is bad. Then J5A is going out of armor into vulnerability to be destroyed. So that'll take another, 2 days, day and a half?
No, it will be destroyed today.
Okay,
in 25 minutes it will be attackable into structure, and it will be destroyed today.
Sully, thank you. Explain that to me, because I thought the armor timer and then there's a day and a half before final timer.
So you attack it through shield, and you get into. So there's a lot of people that differentiate on how you title it. So some people refer to it as an armor reinforce. I refer to it as a shield reinforce because you've reinforced through the shield. The armor reinforce then goes from armor to structure, where you then have the longer timer of 2 days. I believe it's between 2 and 3 days for 00.
Mhm.
After that 2 or 3 days, then you can shoot at the structure, of which results in the Citadel dying.
Sorry. So what's the time period between armor and structure timer?
2 to 3 days. Shield from when it's 0 shield full armor, it's 24 hours, I believe, on average in 00.
Mhm.
And then from with no armor and structure reinforcement timer, it's 2 to 3 days.
Right. So I
To
thought.
clarify, you attack the shields and there's a timer for the armor. You attack the armor and there's a timer for the structure.
Yeah.
And then you attack the structure and the whole thing blows up.
Yeah, these are in structure, right? They're supposed to blow up over
Yeah.
this weekend.
Yep.
All right.
There are 3 Keepstars dying over this weekend.
Yeah, Ron's stream title right now is "The First Castle Crumbles Today."
Okay. So let's make that clear. These will die today. This is why people are showing up to kill them, to get on those kill mails. The armor timers have already been triggered. So we're now on hull timers.
I do have a camera on grid.
Oh, fantastic. Let me get you on. Hold on.
And these are the first
Share screen,
Keepstars
okay.
out of what? 7?
No, in
6,
Fountain,
7?
Fountain, there's only 4, I think. 4. I'm gonna get us back to that in just a second.
And only one Keepstar got extracted and 6 or 7 Satiros. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if many Satiros actually did get unanchored.
How this actually works, just for the people that have not actually caught up on structure mechanics. How does this actually work? How do you take down
All right, the sound should be back. Can you guys give me a test there? Can you say something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard sound on the stream.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I don't know why the stream quality is different because, let's say, I should be streaming source to Discord, but it seems like Metal's one's like 720p.
Yeah, like the Discord stream is coming in clear. It's just by the time it gets to Twitch, it's not so clear.
Yeah, it's let me try to figure out why that's not 100%.
I especially like the amount of recons they have on grid at the moment.
So size this up for us. What's going on so far?
So far, the 116 local. So the blue in this situation is the attacking force. Neutrals are people that I haven't identified as either side, and reds are the defending force. It's set that way because when I asked in local if initiative wanted to be red or blue, they chose red.
Did it?
Yeah, I just randomly asked them in local, and they said red, so they decided to be on that color. But you can see on the overview of the camera, it's not too clear, but there are at least 20 plus recons sat at the moment on this grid with this Keepstar, belonging to Wrecking Crew, Pandemic Horde, Pandemic Legion. Pandemic Horde have a large group of Falcons, Pilgrims as well from Slice and Fraternity. So there are a large amount of Cynos ready to light in this system. Predominantly, they're all gathered up at the top there. This Astra House.
You don't have a data pull for that yet, right?
And here we can see some capitals coming in.
All right.
And so
Apparently-
those are all just Pandemic Legion carriers. Which is a fair amount that I've already just dropped in.
The timer comes out at 6. Sorry, at top of the hour, right?
Yep.
Keepstar.
53, I think.
It is 14 minutes and 38 seconds.
Yeah. So it's basically 53, so coming up quick.
We have Slice Cynos up as well as Pandemic Horde.
Slice is in there. Okay.
Yeah, at the moment it is pretty much everyone is wanting to be here. Even if Keepstar is undefended, it is still a very expensive kill mail. There are very few times these things die in Eve.
Kill mail padding. There we go.
It's part of the spoils of war. I think the Imperium was rewarded with many kills in tribute.
That's 5.
All right, we're about 10 minutes away from destruction of the J5A Keepstar. This was put up by The Culture back in around 2017, maybe even 2016. But it was sold to the Imperium along with all the Fountain in I believe that was 2018 or 2017. The person who made that deal was one of our friends, Harvey Skywalker.
And what was the tally? What was the price? Do you remember?
I think the price was about 400 billion.
Billion.
Because what they did is they said, well, this is how many systems, this is how many structures. So we'll sell you the structures at this rate, 30 cents on the dollar. And we'll sell you the Keepstar for 20 cents on the dollar, that sort of thing. And it just totaled up to about 400 billion, I believe. That number was said to me years ago, and it was only said once. So I was actually
still really, really cheap.
I was actually
really cheap.
Yeah, I was in a meeting with Matani when he's like, hold on a second, somebody wants to sell me a region. And then he went off, came back, went off, came back. And then I think like the second time he came back, he's like, oh, just picked up Fountain for, and then he said how cheap it was. And I think it was like 450 billion. So the culture, they took off to do more, something they thought would be more fun. So they went back to like roaming around in low sec kind of a thing, or knocking around in smaller things, because it was killing their alliance to hold Fountain, because it was so boring to them. They had pacified the locals, and which is hard to do in Fountain, because Fountain Core has been there forever. And they just were not at war with Imperium, their neighbors, so it was hard to get any excitement. So he's like, it's not what we like to do. We got to go. But we have this region. What should we do? I know. Let's sell it to this rich empire that's nearby. So they did. And Northern Coalition was kind of pissed off because it was never offered to them. And this was a big problem because Fountain led to this corridor from the south all the way up to the north, and it just created a ton of problems that really were the beginnings of the war in 2017 and 18. And so it was a complete game changer for the direction of the map when this region was sold, along with this one Keepstar. This was the only Keepstar in the region at the time. Oh, who do we have arriving there, Sully?
I think at the moment these are just vast mixtures of groups. So Fraternity have just lit their Sino in the middle, so expect to see some Fraternity capitals jumping in soon, or sub-capitals being bridged in.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Just to roll back to what you were talking about before, while we were still in silent movie mode, could you take that from the top, and what is actually going on? How do you take these beasts down? Right?
So a Keepstar, when simulated with a fit, you see it's got 405 million hit points. So each with no fit, so you can have fits that increase the armor, as well as obviously defensive. But with no fit, you still have 110 million shield. 100 million shield, 100 million armor, and 100 million structure. I think it's 108 million specifically. At 20% resists. To kill this structure, there is a damage cap on Keepstars and all Citadels. See, it's 75,000 DPS at 20% resists. So for you to be able to pause the repair timer to stop it healing itself after 50 minutes, you have to do at least 10,000 DPS raw, 7,500 with the resistance profile. And that will allow you to actually be able to reinforce this structure. So it's quite a low number given of what you need to pause the timer. However, because there's such a vast amount of shield, which doesn't display in the show info correctly, it still takes a large force to kill it in any effective means, because these things are incredibly defendable with large amounts of fighter squadrons, as well as their super weapon and just the general damage they can put out.
isn't the whole damage cap a little bit disincentivizing in that it kind of locks the time that it takes to take these things down?
So it is and it isn't. With Forsaken Fortress update, the damage cap and before the Forsaken Fortress, they made it so when the structures are in low power, they have less shield and less armor, which is what you see when I do the show info. It shows the reduced amount.
The low power amount was always that way. What was changed with that was the abandoned structures.
No, originally when there was low power, they still had the full amount of shield and armor.
Oh, my bad.
And they made it so when you are in low power, there is no armor reinforced timer. You can attack it from shield straight into structure, and put it into its hull timer. When because they made it so it was easier to attack them because they were too defendable. They had too much of the defending advantage, so they had to make it so they had to maintain fuel. And then with Forsaken Fortress update, is they made it so if there is no fuel for 7 days, they become abandoned. All asset safety is removed, and they can be destroyed instantly.
Yeah, and that's the calendar destruction time. I was more talking about the fact that because of the damage cap, then fundamentally it's a set amount of minutes or ticks that it will take to take these things down. So that's kind of locked in place. And regardless of whether you bring 100 dudes, 500 dudes, or 1,000 dudes, it's going to take the same time, right?
Yeah, that's to allow. Because previously there are times where, for example, pos shields, with pos structures, you used to be able to get enough force on field that you could kill them in 2 minutes, which meant that you could attack them, reinforce them, and then leave before the defenders even had a chance to show in the system. So they made it so the citadels, the defenders have an opportunity. With it taking 30 to 45 minutes per structure, the defenders have an opportunity to get there and try and fight you off and have it available to repair.
Yeah, it's just a little bit sad because if I'm not mistaken, what that fundamentally does is that it means that tie-dye is a really weaponized solution to make it a horrible lag fest of actually taking these down, right? Because you can't bring superior force and then just say, okay, this is going to take 20 minutes and it's going to be dead. And I think that lack of escalation benefit is a little bit detrimental to the whole structure of bashing.
What is local at? A question from.
Local is 1200 at the moment and climbing.
Okay.
Large majority of local is still on the attacking side.
Well, I imagine this won't pass 2,000, 2,200 because, I mean, I don't know if Horde's here yet, but this doesn't look like it's going to be contested. So you're not going to have two groups of thousands. You're going to have one group.
So this is where my frames will start to drop because you see the attacking force has decided to launch their fighters to get them down. So the method in which these carriers are going to attack the structure, which is the safest means to attack a Keepstar, is you will launch your fighters from the safety of a citadel a few 1,000 kilometers off, and then you have your fighters, I'll show brackets here, slowly travel the distance. So you can see if I zoom out.
They're raining. It's like a jellyfish.
So primarily they're Tech 1 fighters because a good defending force strategy is you try and kill them on the way, because each of these squadrons is worth between 20 million and 40 million roughly for T1.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe slightly more, but I say you can see there's people bouncing up at the moment who may just well try and catch them and kill them, but there is a large force of them that will have to travel that entire distance.
And for context, that explains what Killer was telling us yesterday, that he has something like 11,000 of these on his hangar floor.
Yes, there is. The Keepstar has a module called a point defense module with a combat rig installed that can reach out to 45-kilometer range. There is no method to get your fighters to be able to hit outside of that range with the rig on the Keepstar. So these fighters are pretty much being sacrificed. I believe during the reinforced timer, in IGE, I think it was, 176 squadrons of light fighters was destroyed.
Oh,
And each squadron has 9 fighters, and I think each one's roughly between 2 and 5 million. So although on paper with that Keepstar fight, it was a huge loss for the attacking side by, I think it was about 15-20 billion, it still was actually a win because they obviously got the objective complete.
right. It's not without its price, but Keepstar is worth. What are they going for these days? I think they build in 160, don't they? And they sell at like 180.
Build before tax is about 140, 145, and sale is between the 160 and 180 mark.
Yeah. Although I've seen them selling for a lot more lately. I don't know why.
I
So
believe
just out of curiosity, how many fighters do you think would be the average consumption per Keepstar? Especially considering, let's say, just half of them is actually defended to some extent. How many of these fighters would we actually require to take down on average a Keepstar?
depending on the Keepstar, you could see it might not be clear enough on stream, but there is an effect going at the moment around the Keepstar, which is its point defense module. It's like a flat cannon on all sides. Might show up on stream, it might not. It's quite hard to see.
You just see little dotted lines every once in a while.
Do you know if the Keepstar is PDS rigged?
I do not know the fit of this Keepstar. I didn't have time to scan it.
Okay.
I would imagine so. Generally speaking, if it's not PDS rigged, it still has I think it's a 30-kilometer range for a Tech 2 PDS. So I'd still assume that there are many fighters that are going to perish in this.
Here they come. You see the fighters dropping like rain, like snowflakes.
First one's dropping.
That's so neat. Look at that. Look at that trail of fighters that are coming. Those are all unmanned. They're launched from bigger ships. The bigger ships stay out of range. And they
manned by players, but canonically manned by people.
They send in the drones.
Stream is asking, how long does it then actually take to take this down? Again, back to the ticks, and how does that shift when tie-dye is in effect?
When tie-dye's in effect, it's a very tricky one because the timer isn't necessarily affected by tie-dye. So you can see tie-dye at the moment is up to 25% of standard time. And let's see if I can actually click on the Keepstar now.
Are the capitals tethered to be in total safety while they launch these drones? That changed recently.
Yeah, so they used to be able to be tethered when drones were out. Now they are no longer tethered. So if we have a look at the carrier group, I won't change camera too much because it would lag. There are a load of bubbles present. So these are defensive bubbles that mean that if any fleet, any enemy fleet or friendly fleet wants to get at these carriers, now they are mostly no longer tethered, as you can see. There's no tether effects on a large number of them. They aren't able to be at range. They are pulled into as close to them as possible for any defensive fleets up here to cause havoc with. So local has now just hit over 2,100.
Okay, so who came in? That must have been Horde.
So we have caps.
Isn't this the scenario that's going to change if we get that weird heavy bomber thing that Rise has been warning us about?
What?
I believe so.
Well, because that defense thing it would potentially not really work if there was a heavy bomber thing on the field that you could actually start shooting these things with, right?
So we have Fire Coalition entering the system, but I don't think they have over 1,000 or 800. Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead and answer his question if you want to.
So with the capital bomb kind of illusion, I think there will be a significant amount of change done, but I don't know if it will prevent this kind of strategy.
I wonder if the CSM would want a change like that to enter into this war. because that would change the way you take down Keepstars.
Well,
No, too.
if you make Keepstars or structures in general more easier to destroy, you also kind of need to put in a counter that makes it easier to defend. So there needs to be a balance in that whole scenario, and they have talked about the whole overhaul of structures, right?
Yeah, there is still an imbalance in the strategy of this kind of strategy to attack the Keepstar is very difficult to defend against. It isn't impossible, but it is very difficult.
Right.
I'm just trying to.
There's something
So,
about. Go ahead.
There was did a D scan of the capitals, and there was 450 of that D scan.
Okay. What kind of capitals?
Mix of carriers. There are a few faxes in there. I'm just trying to see if I can get a D scan.
Yeah. There's no
But
supers
it's,
then.
No, I don't believe we'll see any supers on grid here.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of how more expensive they are for a very similar purpose as a carrier.
Right.
Especially as once they are in, obviously they then have to be extracted. We may see some Titans to bridge out fleets at the end. That's what we saw in IGE. However, in general, we may not.
So for those that don't know, in order to get a fleet to move home quickly, you bring in Titans and you bridge them home, as opposed to them flying through gates where they can be picked off on their way home, or at least delayed and frustrated. Because once the excitement's over, your guys just want to go home and park. And if they're delayed and frustrated, that really messes with morale. So you bring a Titan in and you jump them home. They get home quicker. Everybody's happier.
So there is currently on this D-scan 446 carriers, 614 battlecruisers, 566 tactical destroyers, and that only shows 2,172 actual ships. So they're even more now. There is 2,500 in local.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, how would actual counters to this happen? Like Killer was talking about the fact that he suspects that at least one of these might be somewhat contested, and then the whole difference between slight harassment and someone actually saying, "Oh, I'm going to just give you a little bit of a bloody nose." What would that actually look like?
A very interesting method that I would personally love to see happen as a possible defensive mechanism is they changed Titan Doomsdays to be more effective against capitals. I'd love to see a couple of Suicide Titans try and take on those carriers because they are untethered on the Astra House. There is no safety net for them because they have fighters out. So imagine a couple of Titans dropping in with lances or bosons and just killing all the carriers. I think that'd be quite a funny thing to see. In terms of the defensive mechanism for this, quite a couple of small T3 destroyer fleets could realistically do a lot of damage to their fighter squadrons. However, there is over 400 carriers. There's a lot of fighter squadrons. It's over 1,200 fighter squadrons.
That's a lot of defanging to go through.
Yes.
So one of the strategies is the capitals will sit next to a structure. They're not tethered because they cannot be. Once you launch drones, you cannot be tethered. But if you get into trouble, you can disconnect from your drones. Is there a timer before you can tether again and be safe?
I don't believe
As
so.
soon as you're no longer invalid for tethering, you immediately tether.
Right, but I'm wondering, like, if you're hanging out near this Astra House, you're within range of tether, you have drones out, so you're not tethered, you're not safe. Then somebody comes to attack you. Can you just release your drones and then grab a tether and be safe?
Yes, I believe that's how it works.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same with target locks. If you lock something, you lose your tether. So if you have one thing locked, then you will untether, and if you unlock that thing, you will immediately tether.
I'm curious.
What about aggro timer though?
Capsuleer combat timers, weapons timers. I think a weapons timer will prevent
Or an
tether,
aggression timer, as
but
Kubo
a
says.
combat timer will not.
What about things like actual bombs, or hell, even something like a variation on smart bomb, pipe bombing strategies to actually stop that whole waterfall of fighters? Isn't there some way of doing something effective to stop that?
So a smart bombing fleet would cause damage. However, there is a damage cap you can do to the fighter squadrons. You can't instantly kill a fighter squadron. And with that pure number, so all these carriers are running their network sensor arrays, which also does prevent them from tethering. However, they then have incredibly fast lock time. And if you're in the middle of a fighter squadron, the chance of you being in range of a couple of fighters is quite high. And these carriers can, even with T1 fighters, can effectively destroy battleships almost instantly. Another interesting point is because fighters are able to do warping. You can, if they recall their fighters from the Keepstar, they will instantly start to warp up to carriers and then redock, which you may see later on is just a big ball of fighters that are now surrounding the Keepstar will just head back up to where all the carriers are almost instantly. So let's do something daring and see if I can show brackets with the fighter ball now.
We're daredevils here at TIS.
Yeah, I now have a grand total of 2 frames per second.
Yikes. Okay, what's tie-dye at?
Tie-dye is holding at 50%.
Oh, you can see the splashing of the drones everywhere. Those are all attacking that structure, but they're circling it. I love that. I haven't seen this. It looks like it's snowing on a sphere. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Almost it's very Christmassy.
Yeah.
We need
See
TCP to add green on the bracket so we can have red, green, and blue.
Are they using all the same type of fighters, or are these different types?
So generally speaking, people will mix and match. I believe the best fighter squadron for use of this is the Einherjes, because they have the fastest natural movement speed.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously with a propulsion module, they go slightly faster than all the others due to just Minmatar technologies. So I do believe a large chunk of them will be Minmatar, but people mix and match because obviously if you have everyone using the same fighter, it starts to get expensive when you buy out Jita.
So the key here is just to get them into place faster. Yeah. That's the win.
Yeah. Structures don't have any specific weakness. They are 20% resistant across the board, so it doesn't matter what fighter you use. Generally speaking, they all do the same damage to structures.
We use Untitled because they have the longest optimal range, by the way.
Killer Bee's here. Aren't you supposed to be commanding this fleet?
It's nothing to command right now, right? Fighters are doing their thing, so no big deal.
So how's it going?
You just went in and said, "Make it snow, baby," and that's what's happening.
So it's not contested. You weren't expecting it to be contested, were you, Killer Bee?
I was, not really expecting a contest, not a proper one, but I was expecting maybe some fuckery like they did on the C-Tech and Armor timer a couple days ago. But obviously we have a ridiculous amount. Like we have almost, with 2,800 people in local.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that doesn't make any sense for them to try anything because there's nothing they can do.
It's fallen into the limitation of the server now, where if Initiative and Defending Force wanted to bring in 500 to 1,000 people, the system, I don't believe, will just cope with that. We are rapidly approaching 2,900 people in local.
Wow, that's more than I thought. That's one side.
UMills in local.
And this is without tests and core, right? So
really,
there's a legacy fleet here and the 1XX, but test isn't here on the main form up. I think there's a legacy Jackdaw fleet with 180 dudes, and then Fireco came with another Jackdaw fleet of about 80-90 dudes. So legacy isn't that committed to this side of the map at the moment. Obviously, if we would send everybody here to kill a Keepstar, then that would open up legacy or test space to attacks from goons. So we made sure that tests stay home so they can respond to any shenanigans that goons and Init might plan.
Is that more than you thought would show up? That seems like an awful lot.
No, on a Saturday for the first Keepstar Kill of the War, that's something people log in for.
Mhm.
I don't think it'll be that much every day. So
And you have one every day for the next 2 days, right?
yeah, we have one tomorrow, one today, one tomorrow, one Monday. So we have three in a row.
Is this an intentional show of force?
No,
This
like
is everyone
Thanks
wants
just
to get
form.
right.
Yeah, we just tell everybody to form. Like basically Keepstars were in final timer. I told all of the alliances leadership, yo, this is when these Keepstars come out. Then I talked a little bit with Test. Like I said, we wanted to not pull everybody here, so then Test space would be vulnerable as much. So
Mhm.
we talked to Test. We're like, do you guys want to whore or do you guys want to stay at home? And they were like, it's fine, we're going to stay at home. So it's like, fine, maybe you can send the legacy fleet just in case. And they were like, okay. And then that's that. Then obviously, I mean, we can take a local scan here in a minute, but Horde has ridiculous numbers. NC numbers are very good as well today. So yeah,
Right.
it's just a strong showing from all the major alliances
Yeah,
involved.
I did just put a local scan in the Twitch chat, and you can see there
Yeah,
it's not
thanks for that.
everything, but it is a significant number of assets.
I'm kind of curious because back in the Casino War, World War B version 1, the numbers that were participating were a bit lower than this, right? It's like our population has been growing, even though EVA's not really been in that much growth. So this points to us being able to break the servers even harder than before, right? Because if you have like almost 4,000 to 5,000 guys, and let's say the goons have like 3 or 4, that's like massive numbers, right?
Yeah, I believe CCP was well informed of this timer and have been working in the background to make this fight possible, because they must have had an inkling of we're about to
No,
break 3,000 people.
we didn't. We didn't like we did the normal fleet notification thing, right? That's all we did on our end. When there's big timers like X47, I actually talk to devs personally and I try to convey them the importance of the upcoming fight. So they put some more into this. But for this one, we just filed the normal fleet notification thing that you can do as a CEO of a corporation. And they put the node on the reinforced node, obviously. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as okay as it is right now. And that's pretty much that, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're keeping a keen interest on this war as well for the server stability, because
There's really nothing they can do. If we want to crash the servers, we could, right? Like, as sad as that sounds, but it's just the reality. If CCP, that's what I'm saying. Look at the number of people we have here right now and how well this node is doing pretty well at the moment, but there's no real fighting going on, right? We're sitting at 50% tighter, which is great. But imagine if there was almost the same amount of defenders in system and everybody was shooting at each other, and there would probably be more people because it was an actual fight too. There's no single super on this grid either, so it would just the service will die if we go all out, both sides. It's as simple as that. Unless CCP put some ginormous effort into it, which they probably will at that point, and then it's all about how low will it it'll just be terrible. Which is why I'm really not looking forward to that day, but it will happen probably.
I was
And
going
it
to
will
break the
be a
record,
day.
Killer. Will there be a record-breaking slugfest in the future? And
Again,
how many will
dude,
we get?
I already hold the world record of most people in system for 9tech4, so I don't know if I want to reclaim that title, to be honest.
Was that you? Did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it was me FCing the northern people, right? It wasn't obviously me. There was,
I
a lot of
remember
people.
though. You were.
But I was in charge of 9tech4 defense.
Yeah, you
But
were.
that's your job. It's your job, Killer, right? To push CCP's boundaries.
In my opinion, my job is to make sure my fleet members are satisfied with my performance.
Well, breaking records is a satisfying thing in itself, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's cool, I guess.
So there you can see Fountain on the map. It's kind of like the appendix of New Eden, but there it sits between the north and the south. Let's see if we can demonstrate its southernness.
Damn you, Merrill. Now I can't look at this without seeing an appendix.
Probably not the right tone. Keepstar and J5A, that is one of the key systems in Fountain, entering from the north. It connects to Pure Blind, I believe. Keepstar is being damaged now. It's on its way to being destroyed. This is the first Keepstar in this Imperium Empire.
And we have just broken 3,000 local.
God, 3,000 local. That's a lot more than I thought. It's 1,000 more than I thought would show up for this. I thought the attacking or the aggressing powers were in the 2,200 range, but 3,000 is that's got to be a scary number to the Imperium.
Yeah, I think it is. It's basically showing that there's at least 4,000 dudes on standby for this war. So it can definitely develop into something very, very dramatic.
3,000 without Test. The reason that's a big deal without Test is Test has a lot of members in comparison to most alliances. There are really only 4 or 5 alliances that have huge numbers. Imperium, clearly, Pandemic Horde, and Fraternity and Test are probably the 4. They're in a bracket all themselves. Well, this is if you don't count HiSec, which has another group that's very big too. But that's
How big were the
yeah.
numbers in World War B1? Killer, do you remember? Just
I
off
remember
the top of your head.
the first fight, the first big fight that happened. I believe it was MTAC O area or nearby. You had 800 Imperium show up against 1,200 invaders, or we'll call them money badgers. The second time that happened, everybody called their friends and said, we got to show up. We got to show up big. The numbers they doubled basically. And Imperium was the one that brought 1,200 to 1,400, but the attackers brought 2,400. So this is bigger than the first World War B battle, or the biggest World War B battle. This is bigger as far as the attacking forces.
Yeah, that was the first battle you mentioned was 2DW. That was over some CSAAs that belonged to whoever lived in Vale at the time, Lorne or somebody, I think, Bastion. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was some Imperium alliance, right?
Mhm.
And that was a big deal because back then, because it was the first time that the Imperium had been outnumbered in a very long time, because we had more people in them. And then, as you mentioned, there was, I think, 2 weeks between 2DW and MTECO, and our numbers doubled by then just because the hype at the time was insane. Like that 1 or 2 weeks between those two timers, Reddit, there was actual decent Reddit propaganda almost every day. There was just, everybody was coming back. Everybody was starting to play. It was crazy. And then when MTECO happened, we had double that. Yeah, it was pretty nutty.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then you said a key point there. That was the first time the Imperium had been outnumbered. And I think that was literally one of the key points of the whole war, is to know that the invaders could outnumber Imperium, change the entire ballgame.
Yeah, I mean, that was the turning point. After 2DW was also when I got the full backing from PL at the time. There was a lot of people in the PL leadership back then when I took us for World War B, when I took us on that contract initially, that were like, look, another new young FC trying to beat the CFC, how many times have I seen this before, basically, that kind of thing. And after 2DW, I was actually poked by Graf, and he said, like, I didn't think, like, I can't remember the exact word, but he basically said, like, holy shit, I didn't think, we could outnumber them, and this might actually happen this time around. And that was like also one of the sort of catalysts that made a lot of people come back, because it wasn't just another, to be failed attempt at, at the CFC. This one seemed more promising than the other ones, and that's why a lot of people came back after 2DW and before MTECO.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know. So they weren't fully committed until they saw that.
Yeah, that was at least for PL. I'm sure that other alliances were already fully committed at the time, but at least for PL, it was certainly, there was a bit of doubt in the leadership until 2DW, and then 2DW turned that around, and I ended up getting the full support from all of the PL leadership, and that was a turning point, at least for me, anyways.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Nice bit of history there from the guy who propelled Pandemic Legion and really kind of led the First World War B in significant ways. Killer B here, who's now also in this World War B2, I guess we could call it. Let's talk about Arya's. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say this is what most people call it at the moment, anyways, right? World
Yeah.
War B2, so I stick to that at the moment.
Exactly. That's okay. So Arya says something interesting here, and he's part of TIS as well, but he's from the Imperium, from TNT, I believe. He says the 3000 without test is also interesting. Part of the rhetoric was that test/Imperium NIP makes things not fair. But 3000 versus test/Imperium forces doesn't seem so much unfair as advertised. Yeah, that's an interesting historical point.
He's not wrong, obviously, not fully wrong, at least, anyways. First of all, man, there was like this one, and basically Noraus, the leader of FRT, he said something to this point, which I thought was really cool. He had like, I can't remember what he said, but it was something with kings, a couple kings in a room, and to take down one of the kings. It was, I can't remember, but basically, it was, so he's right, because it would have been a very, very close war if it was just Panda Fam versus the Imperium. And it would have been not as close, but it would also be in a tough war if it would have just been Test and Legacy versus Imperium, right? But neither side is comfortable taking that huge risk of it going wrong. If you wanna take down the third king, right? The third king of Eve, which is also the largest or the biggest king with the biggest empire in total, then you have to, like, two of the kings have to be allies, otherwise they're just not going to do it, right? It is certainly a leadership attitude like thing. Obviously, if Gigex was in command of Panda Fam, he would probably just say, fuck it, we're going. Right. But the people, and honestly, you can spin that, you can put the narrative on it as much as you want, but if you were in the shoes, honestly, I think you wouldn't make a different decision either. Like, going out, especially for Test, because they live right next to the Imperium, for them to say, hey, this is bad, we want to turn around on the Imperium and attack, without being sure that they're not going to be attacked from the other end as well, that just wouldn't make sense. And if you're in charge of this many people and you have built up this huge empire over this many years, then you're not just going to risk that without being fairly, safe. It's just, I understand the decision, right? But I agree with you that obviously it is a risk-averse decision to make. Yeah, 100%. But newsflash, every single leader in EVE is risk-averse to some degree, at least Gigex, unless, obviously.
Yeah.
There's people that aren't. There's people that aren't, but those people usually don't stick around anymore. There's a reason why Test Alliance is still around after all these years. There's a reason why Goonswarm is around after all these years, and why NC is, right? It's because the people at the top, they make the right decisions. And at the end of the day, I don't make this decision. Like, Vince makes these decisions for NC Dot, right? At the end of the day, I do what Vince tells me to do. And I don't know. It's just the way it goes, man. You can like talk shit as much as you want about that, but that's just the way it is.
You almost touch upon a little bit of a topic there, right? It's the whole geography and the geopolitics of EVE change over the years, but the top echelon seem to be the same. It's not really changed that much over the past almost 10 years. So isn't this just almost like potentially a rerun now with more people?
Okay, what is the question again? Sorry.
Isn't this World War B2 almost going to be a little bit of a rerun with small variations? Because it's almost the same players, right? It's almost the same people Doomsday calling the shots.
That's a Doomsday going off.
The NSH Serb fleet. Pretty sure they lost some shit too.
NSH is Nullsec, yeah. Nullsec, ja, Schulpen. Doomsday works on mass, so it looks like they're shooting it at cruisers, so they might take out a few, but it wouldn't take out all of them, would it?
A single Doomsday can't kill a cruiser anymore ever since the...
It can't?
Yeah. No, I believe they made it so the Keepstar Doomsday is very effective against capitals and larger
What?
subcapitals, but I don't believe it applies effectively against cruisers and below.
Yes, it does. It one-shots monitors,
Hmm.
and it's like the smallest battle cruiser, tank cruiser there is. Like, that's just wrong, straight up.
So it can't.
Keepstar DD kills any subcap.
Are you thinking of Doomsdays from Titans? Because this is the Station Doomsday.
Titans, yeah.
Yeah, I
But-
was talking about the Keepstar one. Which
Yeah,
one were they talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about the Station Doomsday that just went off. We just saw that.
Yeah, that still kills like all kinds of subs, right?
Yeah.
Like a monitor will die to the Keepstar DD, and basically
the
any
change-
subcap.
Yes, that's correct. The changes they made were to the Titans.
Yeah, okay, so let's not confuse. We just saw Keepstar shoot a Doomsday he was shooting at who, you said? The Serbs?
Yeah, then the NSH Serbs, which I don't know why they're
Cerberuses.
down there, but
Yeah.
that's cool, I guess.
Well, it's all fireworks. But what I said, but it goes off mass. The Doomsday will hit the first ship that it's targeted at, and then it will look for additional ships around it that have high mass and take the top mass ship. So it'll bounce off 4 or 5 ships. And it'll probably destroy them all. So it probably killed 5 or 6 or however many it bounced off of.
Yeah, it has been known that a Keepstar Doomsday was fired previously on a capital as a test kind of thing, and it did bounce and then kill a Titan sat next to it.
Yeah,
The
that was an NC fleet commander named PK.
The Keepstar Doomsday is effective enough to destroy a Titan in one shot.
Well, but that was a Ragnarok, and I think it was unfit. It was literally just hanging out without any
Yeah.
defense. So, but yes, it's a strong Doomsday. Obviously, it's built to hit huge ships, and a few of them. I shot a Doomsday at, I think it was Merkelchen. Yeah, was it Merkelchen? Yeah, but the Goon fleet that was attacking my Keepstar at the time was very smart, and they stayed just out of range of the natural defenses of a Keepstar. So the only thing they could reach them was a Doomsday, which fires once every few minutes. So it I think I only shot it twice in the time of the whole battle. So if a mothership or a super carrier is tanked up, it can survive a Doomsday. But dreads, probably not. Carriers, probably not.
And even if it does survive, it does leave it with a big hole inside of it.
The first guy I shot with a Doomsday took off. It was a Avatar. He's like, I'm out of here. Yeah.
And very slowly left.
Somebody called me a boomer because I called it a mothership. That's true.
That's fair play.
Yeah.
For those, that's it earlier. For those techies wondering, this camera with the settings it has is currently using 9 gig of RAM to keep going.
Wow.
Wow. So, and it's important to note that that's only possible because of the
64-bit client. Yes. That's something that happened only last year.
Maybe we should get CCP to bring out the motherships because they were bigger than this, bigger than the Titan.
Well, are you talking about the Iapetan Titans?
I'm talking about the original motherships that was in Eve before we got all this Titan stuff.
Yeah, those big ones are. I believe they're still in the game first, but I don't think
Yeah,
they're
they are.
used
Yeah.
anymore.
Are you referring to the Iapetan Titans?
I think so. Yeah.
I didn't know there were motherships bigger than Titans a long time ago.
Yeah, and they were called motherships originally.
Yeah,
I'll be back.
the Iapetan
Thanks, Kilby.
Titans
Appreciate it.
They are bigger than Keepstars.
The Iapetan Titans are hundreds of times larger than our existing Titans.
I didn't know anything about that. I thought mothership was a Nyx or an Eon.
So it's not really boomer, except if you call original veterans of Eve boomers by default.
I think that's what he meant. What's that timer at? Can you tell, Sully?
So the timer is currently paused at 52 minutes, so that's not going to count down. I'm going to see if I can get close enough. So it looks to be just coming up to halfway on the structure health.
Yeah, so let's explain that a little bit. This structure wants to self-repair. It has a vulnerability timer of only 15 minutes. In that 15 minutes, if it receives no damage, it will automatically tick down to 0. Once it gets to 0, it becomes invulnerable again, and it is completely safe from attack. So the way the timer is stopped is if damage is being applied to it. And at that point, it's a race against keeping enough damage on it and applying enough damage to destroy it before damage is lifted and it begins to tick towards safety. It has to hit a certain damage minimum, right?
Yeah, 10% of the cap.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just shared a Twitter link in Twitch chat that is a size comparison provided by Uriel.
And we'll have a quick look at that. Oh, those motherships. I wondered if they were conceptual.
Yeah, so they were never like flyable by players, and those files, the models in the game were not updated as the game progressed. So those are actually not compatible with the current game. And if CCP wanted to bring these in, even in NPC form, then they would have to like have the art team basically rebuild them from the start. But these files do exist on like the original EVE Online CDs and stuff.
Wild. The original motherships. Never seen in the game, by the way. They're just theoretical. How many Keepstar timers today, asks Kodat. The answer is 1 today, 1 tomorrow, 1 Monday. And the reason you do that is you don't want to tire out your fleets. You don't want any hiccups of missing a timer because you get caught up on one timer. So you span them out for a good amount of time. So 24 hours is a good amount of time. And that's how you set them up. And it's like one after another. So these guys have 3 days of looking forward of getting a Keepstar on their kill mail boards.
So for those that may notice, you can see the lights on the Keepstar are beginning to flicker. Because it is taking structural damage, it is now having, so the law behind it is it's now struggling to maintain itself. So you can see the lights starting to flicker, especially the logo, the B logo at the top is also pulsing where it is struggling for power because of the damage taken. The closer to 0 is the quicker and more obvious this effects come. It's a nice little feature that CCP put in so that you can see it is actually taking damage and it is struggling.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it's too bad you can't really appreciate this much. I'm glad you told us. You can't really appreciate it that much because normally if a Keepstar is going down, there's enough people around it to create tie-dye, which slows down time, which makes a lot of the neat effects not as impactful because immersion is interrupted when you're moving in slow motion. A couple things from chat here. Kodat says, those Titans, not motherships, and they were never in the game. I think he's talking about what we just looked at.
Yeah, they're not motherships. They're just the biggest ships that were ever created for this
Okay,
game.
so those, okay, yeah. So Caleb, they weren't moms, they weren't motherships, they were Titans.
They were called motherships at early launch in the beta when they were still in.
I'll take your word for it. You were here, I wasn't.
Yeah, I don't believe that there were any other ships that were even remotely that large, like ever conceptualized or arted out or anything.
Yeah. So they were called motherships, even though they were the biggest ships at the time. The Titans didn't come in until like, I think a year and a half, 2 years after EVE started. Another question. Do we know how many Keepstars there are in Fountain? Killa would know that. He's not here anymore. He might come back, but I believe there's 4 or 5. I believe there are 4. 5, sorry. No, 4. 3 of them are
I-
dying in the next 3 days, and 1 is just turned into armor timer, so it'll be set up for later in the week.
Someone's saying in chat that there are 6, and obviously including this one, so it will be 5 after this one. So yeah, there will be a couple more of these to go.
Okay, so there's 2 more after that. So there's a series of 4 that will end next week, and then there's 2 more after that. Okay, I didn't know that. I wonder, because the ones that we're seeing today, the ones that we're seeing in the next 3 days are significant systems, right? This one here, J5A, is it's an important system. But you also have IGE happening next. And then after that, you have C-TAC N4. Those are 3 very key systems. I wonder where the 4th through 6th are.
There is one in
YTAC 2.
KVN.
Yeah.
YTAC 2. So YTAC 2 is where the initiative withdrew from IGE. They withdrew into YTAC 2, and then obviously have crossed the border into Delve. J5A is a key Keepstar because this is what is on the border to Cloudring, of which used to be a good logistical method to bring things up and down into Fountain.
Yeah, you know what? I said C-TAC-N, and I was completely off. I meant KVN, which is the southern part of Fountain. KVN. C-TAC-4 is actually in Aquarius. Or C-TAC-N. YTAC-2, good one. I forgot about that one. That was how they exited. And then OTAC-P. I didn't know there was a Keepstar there. So that's a Bastion Keepstar. OTAC-PNSN. Oh no, Bastion. We'll see if TIS can negotiate for the safety of that one last Keepstar. I can tell you now, no.
On Twitch chat, No64 Life has just put there are 6 Keepstars in Fountain as of current, including this one, and there are 42 in Delve.
Yeah. Right. That's why it's called Fortress Delve.
And someone was apparently correcting. Apparently, there are at least 62 Keepstars. So either way, there is either 42 or greater Keepstars in Delve, which is an astronomical amount, especially because they're in the original Keepstars, which were, when they were first brought out, were in the realm of 300 billion.
Is there any Palatine Keepstars? That's the singular.
Palatine Keepstar has never been built. It would take the entire planetary production of the entire game for like 6 months or more to come up with enough stuff.
Yeah,
There is somebody. There is somebody
Yeah.
building towards it though. There's a wormhole guy. He's a hermit.
There's always people who say that.
Yeah.
No, but I've seen. But he's demonstrated the amount of PI that he's putting together. So he's on his way to building it. It's going to take him years, but who knows? He's a Russian guy, I think. Not saying he will do it, saying he's moving in that direction. He wants to do it. This Keepstar is going to die. Yes, this is a foregone conclusion. It's not being defended. And so it's just a matter of whittling it down. Sully, you were saying?
Yeah. Yeah, the Paladin Keepstar, I believe when it was brought out, would take more resource. I think.
Yep, I just put it in
the
chat.
Yeah, there was more resource required to build it than currently had been in the game or had been made since the beginning of EVE to that point.
Yeah, it was theoretically impossible to build.
Yeah.
They designed it to be quote unquote theoretically impossible. Like they know it can be.
Yeah.
If you remember, Titans technically were considered to be, by many, a pretty unfeasible feat to accomplish, and look how many we have in the game now. So
yeah, well, they were originally conceptualized as alliance level assets, and now they're personal assets. A Palatine Keepstar, if you ignore all of the stuff needed to actually make it, and the materials and everything cost, it is 1,950 production line years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think part of the reason they made it an impossibly high threshold to build one was the example they had in history about how EVE players could have ingenuity and build many Titans. So that was counter to, like, we dare you to find a way to do that here.
The interesting thing about the Palatine Keepstar is, there can only ever be one in existence at any given point in time. If there is one anchored, then you cannot anchor another one. You could build as many as you want, but you can't anchor it. And when the first one is destroyed, there will be a permanent monument erected in that space.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple more questions. And one is, will there be a fight today? I saw that question. I can't find who asked it. There won't be a fight today that I can... Yeah, you won't see a fight today. You saw Doomsday come off the Keepstar, but that's not really a fight.
Local has just hit 3,355 pilots.
Incredible. That is incredible, because that's not a fight between two parties. That's one side of this war, and it's amazing. We've never seen a number that big for one side. And if I were in the Imperium leadership, I would be very worried about that number.
I do still hear jump effects, however, my camera client is now down to 1.7 FPS, so I'm going to wait for it to kind of settle out a little bit.
Yeah, don't swing.
Remember, only one front people as well.
That's Villy, leader of test. Say that again, sorry.
It's important to remember, for the most part, this is only one front worth of forces. Like, this is almost entirely PanFam, right? There's very little test here. There's very little, well, there's a decent little contingent of legacy here, and that's it, right? Like, this is Horde, NC, PL, and the Western front.
Who's not here?
Test isn't here. The majority of legacy isn't here.
Is Fraternity there? Or Army of Mango?
I believe so, yeah.
An Army of...
No, Army isn't there, but Fraternity would be.
Wow.
Yeah. So Legacy sent up one full fleet, and for the most part, that's really, like, more numbers don't help this. It just increases the tie-dye, right? So
yeah, it kind of makes it worse. Makes it go slower. Well, here's the question that we posed to Killer B, Villy, since you're here, and that was something brought up by Arya from TNT, the Imperium. He said, if you can basically get this many people in system without test, without legacy, then the whole idea that the rest of the game couldn't take on test plus the Imperium seems not to hold up.
I don't know. That's kind of debatable, right? So there's 3,000 here right now. So take away the 300 legacy that's there, so it's 2,700. Goons can pretty consistently form 1,500, and I'm pretty sure legacy test can form a pretty consistent 1,500. So then it becomes 3K versus 3K, and you give the defender all the advantages. It's not a winnable fight.
All right. This is a big force. I've never seen a force this big that was on the one side. That's maybe the biggest armada ever assembled, is what you're seeing, taking out this first Keepstar in Fountain. Fountain has already fallen. It's been essentially abandoned, as a tactical retreat was made by Bastion and the Initiative back to Delve, where they have 42 Keepstars in a much better defensible area. So Fountain has fallen. This first Keepstar will die in a few minutes. It's taken a long time because of tie-dye. Time is moving at, I believe, 10% its usual time.
Tie-dye is currently sat at 39%.
Oh, 39, okay.
Yeah. Because, like was alluded to earlier, there isn't a big brawl going on. So there's one main target, which is the Keepstar. There's not a load of fighters being reassigned, weapons being sucked in, multiple groups taking multiple damage types. So the server is able to cope relatively well with this. If this was a 1,500 v 1,500 fight, chances are would be at max tie-dye, just because of the calculations the server have to do for every ship taking damage, every ship doing damage, and things like that. So that's the only way you see tie-dye spike as well when people leave systems. It's because the server has to go, oh, people are leaving, right, I have to do work and calculate all that. So with these numbers, because it's a single target, it's why the server's able to handle this much.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah, otherwise it'd be crushing 10% tie-dye.
Yeah.
calculations that the server is
Another
performing right
doomsday
now are
going
pretty
off.
limited.
So here's a second doomsday going off. I think you saw that lightning bolt coming from the station. So we've seen, that's the second doomsday we've seen. Don't know what that was aimed at. But.
You just see a little blue speck just disappear on the camera.
Yeah, he's got.
It was there and then it just went and disappeared.
Yeah, whoever was the target of that is eviscerated.
Yeah, there's
there
a
you go.
small tiny explosion.
Yeah, I saw that little explosion there. That is hilarious.
Yeah.
That Keepstar is like a giant bug zapper.
I'm surprised that the Armada here doesn't have a decoy, a doomsday decoy.
That would imply we feel the need to go in range of the Keepstar.
Yeah, so the large amount so Doomsday decoys, what it means by that is, like Matt was said earlier, the Keepstar Doomsday will hit the designated target, then it will look for the biggest mass target. So typically what groups will do if they are using dreadnoughts on the Keepstar is they will have a apostle or another fax, something that is big and meaty, and they'll put it as much mass as possible so that when the Keepstar goes to Doomsday something, it goes, I'm looking for the biggest thing possible. Oh, there's an apostle, and it soaks the damage. It's designed to soak up that Keepstar's Doomsday.
So usually Keepstar decoys are actually just like Higgs rigged like haulers nowadays, like $1 million or 1 million bestowers.
They usually does it by group. So when we fight a Keepstar grid and wormholes, normally what we'll do is we'll do Higgs rigged ospreys, and it will attack the biggest mass of like group of mass, at least from our testing and what we've seen. So yeah, I was a little surprised that I'm a little surprised that they're not even using it here, but I guess you don't necessarily need to on a larger spec.
Anything valuable is far enough away that it can't be reached.
Right.
That's what Billy was saying.
The carriers are doing the majority of the work here. So.
Right.
So you remember, to the audience, we saw the structure. Way above it is this Astra House. It's surrounded by carriers. The carriers sit around that Astra House in relative safety. And then from there, they rain down or snow down all these drones. And that's what we were watching move in slow motion. So we said it looked like it was snowing on a sphere.
If you look at the top of the stream,
the Doomsday hit a Stiletto and a couple Fraternity noob ships that were flying around with it.
That's a glorious way to go.
To give you an idea of the target selection the Keepstar currently has.
Yeah, we did just see there's a group of subcapitals on the left who owns them. Fraternity Zealot fleet. Obviously, once the Keepstar has fired its Doomsday, it needs time to recharge. So the small subcapital groups go, I know it's now safe. The Keepstar can't Doomsday us and cause devastation. So they then come back into range and they'll shoot at it for a few minutes, mainly just to get on the kill mails and things like that. When the timer has come up for the Doomsday, they'll likely leave grid again.
They've got people keeping an eye on the Doomsday, and they'll probably send them back a few minutes early just because of the way that tie-dye is currently set up right now.
Yeah, I can't see the exact health of the Keepstar, but it looks to be about 20 to 25% at the moment. Because unfortunately, I don't have it locked. Otherwise, I fear for this cameraman's life.
I hope he doesn't zap you, but it would be really awesome if he did, because we could see that lightning bolt coming at us. That's funny. You can tell how many drones are around this Keepstar by the amount of blue at the top of the screen. Those are
just carriers. They're not even just the drones. The drones aren't shown on my bracket profile at the moment. That's
carriers.
just the carriers at the top.
I think we saw there was like 540 Thanatos and like 100 Archons or something. So probably close to 500 carriers there.
Yeah, there's the drones.
Oh, yeah. I like the way they're surrounding this structure and shooting at it. That's what's going on there. You know, it'd be an interesting fix is to nerf drone gun range so that it could never reach a Keepstar structure.
I do believe currently these fighters are probably taking damage from the PDS.
So, what's currently happening is only 2 of the 4 fighter groups have the optimal range when increased to be able to hit the Keepstar from safety. Only Energies and Templars, when like triple optimal range bumped, can really do this from any safety. Furbolgs and Dragonflies just don't have the base range, when modified, to get out far enough away from a PDS rigged Keepstar.
Oh, interesting. So the other ones are at risk of blowing up while they try to attack it.
Hence why, if you look right now, I'm sure it'd be all EM and explosive fighters. Or the
Yeah.
vast majority. All Energies, all Templars.
Yeah. So it's being asked, is this a glass fountain campaign? I don't think so. It's never been characterized that way. I've heard it once, but Billy, you're in charge of much of this campaign in general.
It's not a glass fountain campaign, but glassing fountain is part of the campaign.
Yeah. What would you call this campaign?
I believe it's being called World War B2.
But in a military sense, like that's the fun name that's out in public. But is there a campaign name to this? Was there any thought of that when you started?
Campaign name, like
Yeah, it's like Max Destruction or Max
Operation like B Extermination, like something like that. Like
okay, so there was no name.
no, man.
But someone just discorded me the message. It's global warming reducing the population of bees.
Oh no, leave the bees alone. So in the old times, you didn't name a war, right? Because it wasn't really concepts of major wars. It was more like campaigns. There was a thing that your group was going to do. And then if a war resulted from that, then you could later, name the war, or you could say it was the Max Campaign War or whatever. But military leaders would name their operations. There was a lot more like window dressing to these fights because they were slower and not nearly as professionalized as they are now. Yeah, max damage. What do I keep calling it? What's local at? Just to check in with that number. That's a real big takeaway.
Local is currently 3388. 3,388 pilots in system.
So just under 3,400 pilots. Most of them here to destroy that Keepstar. That's astounding. And that is not all of the forces attacking Delve. That is only, I won't say 1/2, but that is one of the theaters. So it might be 60, 70% of the people attacking. That's a lot, especially at this stage in the war where it seemed to be kind of calming down.
Well, this is the first Keepstar kill, right? I think everybody's like Keepstar kills, and even normally are rare. And obviously, this is the first of 3 this weekend that are in structure that have the opportunity to be killed. People are really excited for that, and it's a cool event to be on. You're in the first Keepstar kill of World War B2, right? Like everybody's really pumped for it, and there's 56 more Keepstars or whatever behind this, but if you kill one today, it's 55, and then 2 more, it's 53. Like bit by bit, people are excited for it. Keepstar kills aren't common in EVE.
Yeah. Someone earlier in chat asked, how would you go around tackling Delve? And the immediate reply was, you'd take them one at a time.
Yeah.
Also, this is, it should be noted, this is a Keepstar that, it's not just any Keepstar. This is a pretty notable Keepstar. It's one of the early ones built. It was built in Fountain on the edge of Pureblind. So it was used to launch a lot of attacks from the south up into the north. And J5A is also a historic system where a huge battle happened between, well, actually Test and Goonswarm at the time. It was CFC versus Test. They were the honey badgers at the time. And Pandemic Legion was in that fight along with the rest of N3, which would be NC and other groups. And I believe JTAC 5 is where the server went out under the pressure of so many capitals fighting it out.
The server crash was in Z9PP, 2 jumps away.
2 jumps away. Okay. So it wasn't this system, but it was I think there was something about this system that they wanted to conquer it or something.
Well, during the original Fountain War, CFC staged from B-D, which is next door. J5A is the Fountain Regional, B-D is the Cloud Ring Regional. So you once again had this regional gate divide. That gate divide is much more bridgeable in hindsight than many of the regionals we're dealing with in this war, because you can go through the outer ring passage. But for sure, this was the place where the mass majority of the fighting happened in the first couple weeks of the original Fountain War.
Yeah. So this is a Fountain War territory here, this one. That's from 2014. 2013 was Fountain War, actually. So 7 years later. And it was around this time. I think it was a summer war. So, or it was a Fountain War was, yeah, I think it was a late summer war, right around this time. So it's almost exactly 7 years ago. We were seeing massive fighting in this same area with a lot of the same alliances at war. Now, what's the damage at? Can you tell, Sully?
Looks to be I'd say between 10 and 15%, if not less. The chat, I'm sure, will be able to correct us because they were able to have it locked because they are watching whilst also in system.
18% is what we're getting. Now 17%. Thank you. Somebody's way off there with 38%. We're just going to ignore you. Okay, 17%. This is going to take a long time.
It
Yeah.
should be done in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, tie-dye is bouncing between 50% and 30% depending on fleets. We are very close to breaking the 3,400 mark in local.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can't remember what the current record is in one system.
Well, in one system, it was like 6,000, I want to say 6,400, but I think that's a little bit off. It's just over 6,000, I think. Yeah. We're not going to get that record, but what's astounding here is that this is a huge show of force.
Yeah, LB Puppy put a D-scan in earlier of local, so you can tell the amount of pilots in system, and quick to what Willie said, Test Alliance have bought 61 pilots.
Jeez.
I've insisted they're 3395. I can see the rockets whizzing right past me.
To be fair, when he says we brought 61 pilots, it's more like 61 random test guys have decided to show up and forward the kill now.
Yes. It's 61 pilots think they need 200 billion plus kill mail on their kill boards.
I heard Rich. I heard Rich talking. Is he still here? He sounded like he was in a foxhole. Can you report?
We're looking at just under 3,400 people in local. I'm seeing rockets whiz right past me.
That's a crazy high number, isn't it?
I'm reading 3396 right now. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'll move there.
Man, Sully, that client's probably crying right now.
I am up to it's dropped down to 5 gig RAM usage.
Oh, what was up at what was it up at?
9 gig at the peak.
Oh, you gotta look at the commit charge for it, because that's how much it's really using.
Yeah. When fights get too big, the ways of visualizing it become limited, and so things move slower, and clients are under a huge burden. This was much worse years ago when there was only a 32-bit client. At that point, you would just have clients seize and disconnect. So we're lucky to be able to see this at all these days.
Yeah, commit it is saying 12 gig.
Oof.
So
That's
yeah.
about right.
It's just about to creep over 10% of my system's available RAM, so I've got plenty to spare.
Yeah. So Jojo says, out of all the dead Keepstars in Zeke Kill, the largest fleet so far was 1,800 pilots on the Kill Mail, and that was from the CFC Imperium. So that might have been during the Fountain campaign not long ago, and I think you are going to break that record. There's going to be more than 1,800 people on this Kill Mail, if the Kill Mail can handle
That's
it.
a safe bet. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe the newer kill mails may be able to handle this. I remember the older ones that if you had a system on a heavy load, the kill mail would just be an empty. There are
Yeah.
historical images of Z kill titans which have no fit at all because the server just went, I can't handle generating your kill mail. I know you died in this ship. I do believe I know of one case as well where a pilot lost his titan in such heavy load on the server they actually spawned in his death location in his Titan. So he was actually docked in high sec Titan.
Yeah.
Oops.
Lady Scarlet's Titan in BTAC R, she was destroyed in BTAC R, and her kill mail came up empty without a fit, and she was teased that she didn't even have a fit Titan. But it was actually a kill mail error that wouldn't show it. It was actually a very strong fit.
Yeah, there are. I think I personally know of one, but I believe I've heard a couple of times where the server's under such heavy load that KMLs themselves have just not even been generated. There was one in the branch war many years ago where a POS had so many pilots on the kill mail, it just refused to generate a kill mail because
Yeah.
the server just wasn't able to handle it. It was deleted the structure as normal. It was a kill, but there was no evidence of the kill.
Also, station eggs. We killed the station in the Fountain War, actually. God, it's about 7 years ago. And there was no kill mail for that. This is before the new structures, when you had old outposts and stations that you could put down. They came in the form of an egg that you had to plant.
So it's important to note right now, if you're not watching the screen, there's a large number of fleets maneuvering around the grid and starting to come in.
Yeah.
Which means they're probably getting their shots in on the Keepstar to ensure kill mills. So my guess is that Keepstar is looking pretty low, and it's either fired its Doomsday for the last time or about to. So if there's going to be any real fireworks, they're going to come in the next few minutes probably.
I'm hoping my client has enough of a setting set so that I can see the Keepstar explosion. I do have an FX enabled, so it'll be interesting to see if the Keepstar does generate its explosion or not.
That's a good point. So a lot of people are destroying this thing with drones. So the carriers will be on the kill mails, but all these smaller fleets haven't hit it yet, so they won't be on the kill mail. And that's why Avili is saying they are now surrounding the Keepstar to try to shoot it a little bit to get on that kill mail and get this registered as part of their destruction. And you don't want to do that when the Keepstar has a Doomsday available to it, because it'll take out 5 or 6 ships in one blast. 10% left.
I imagine the person who is manning this Keepstar is frantically either hoping the Doomsday timer is up and choosing a target and trying to lock them, or frantically clicking a button hoping that the Doomsday will fire before it dies.
Yeah, it's
I'm pretty sure he'll get a Doomsday off before it goes with this amount of tie-dye. I don't think that's a reasonable risk.
So,
and even if he does, I don't think anybody particularly cares if they die. At this point,
they've all gotten their shot in. They're on the mail.
Yeah, 6 people, dying is not really much in the scheme of a Keepstar kill.
Yeah, and as was said earlier, obviously with the grid fight, now there are a lot more things server has to calculate, a lot more people actually shooting guns, doing tracking calculations. The tie-dye has maxed out and is, as you can see, it is really starting to stutter along. So because of the difference in fight, whereas it was mostly fighters before, now there are 300 to 500 plus subcapitals in just this screen alone, all trying to do damage. The server has a lot more calculations to do, and so the tie-dye will maintain at maximum, and there might even having to be lag mitigations going on to prevent the guns from actually not doing damage. which players of old will know how frustrating it can be.
So, a question from the audience here, Kakaro, I think, says, are there lots of assets in the Keepstar which will asset safety?
Yes. Yeah. Given the age of this Keepstar, there could be a considerable amount of assets in here that will end up in asset safety. I don't know of anyone who personally still has assets in here, but I imagine there will be some Titans, some Supers, and quite a few Dreads and Carriers of players of old that have since either left the game or moved on to other areas of space and just deemed it as a dead asset because you can't dock it when you're not part of their group and you're not blue to them. So I think there will be a considerable amount of asset safety going on here.
Yeah, and Arya brings up a good point. There could be assets from before the time where Imperium took over the Keepstar. There also be
it's all gonna safety. This thing isn't abandoned, you know.
No,
Right.
yeah, it's all going to go into safety, which I believe this system goes into Velazan, into Lowtech. So I imagine there will be people camping there for some odd fun things, as well as some possible fire sales that may come out. Similar to what Aria said, I also have some fireworks in the station from when I was in Fountain. So yeah, some things do get left behind.
one thing that you won't get back is your clones and their implants. Those will be destroyed. And there are people who have
Correct.
expensive clones in there.
That seems a little less likely. When you talk about the IGE Keepstar tomorrow, that seems much more likely. But here, I don't think a pile of expensive clones is all that
It's
realistic.
really unfortunate that there's no record of that.
Yeah. Well, Art J from last Sunday's show and also from EVNT said that he had a clone in that Fountain Keepstar. And that might have been when when the culture was in charge of it. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, it's like Billy said, the odds of there being clones in here with expensive implants isn't likely because generally speaking, pilots will log off in their expensive clones if they're not going to be here for a while, as well as if they are leaving the area, they'll take most of that stuff with them.
mm-hmm.
So the likelihood of there being expensive pods in here is low. Not to say there isn't, but IGE I expect to be a significant one.
Yeah.
Just from that was Initiative's main staging for a long period of time. I think there will be a lot of assets in there that will go into asset safety, and if I was to be betting from an outsider point of view, IGE would probably be the Keepstar I would like to see defended the most, just from how long people were sat there with it.
Mm. RJ confirms that he used to be in the culture, and that's why he has a clone in there. It's from a long time ago.
Yeah, Pilot is now still at its maximum. Local doesn't seem to be increasing that much anymore. It seems to mainly be decreasing with pilots logging off or leaving system due to just natural progression. And there is very little health left, so
Well, we'll do a station identification thing now. You were watching Talking in Stations on Saturday. We're watching the first Keepstar go down in this war in J5A. That is the Fountain region. It did belong to Goonswarm and is about to explode under the pressure of 3,400 combatants in system. That's the largest number of combatants we've ever seen on one side of a conflict. The largest ever in a system was over 6,000. And that was in the Guinness Book of World Records. I am Matterall here with Sully. You may know he gained a lot of fame by picking up the biggest loot drop in history when stations went into abandoned mode. We're also here with Villy and Vonsway and others. Killer B had come by earlier, tell us what was going on. He's in charge of the fleets that are destroying this Keepstar, so he had to take off.
So to answer the question, chat from Hordbean, it is and it isn't overkill.
Wait, let's get
it's-
the question out there for people who are listening.
So Hordbean asked, is it a bit overkill to bring this force versus an uncontested Keepstar? It wasn't known whether it would be contested or not, because generally it's hard to say for that side. However, it is also a good opportunity to show. It is a good opportunity as well to show how the fleets are, how much of a force the attackers can bring. For example, bringing over 500 carriers, 600 capitals onto a grid is an immense force for them to attack.
Yeah, bringing that many will discourage the defense.
I hope that we do see Keepstar defenses and the fights will be an interesting one. I don't think we will have had a Keepstar defense on this scale that wasn't a massive Titan brawl. But it should only be a few seconds, or a few percentage rather, of health until the Keepstar reaches its peak and destroys. I can't see Tide at the moment because obviously I've got the screen as this view, but I imagine it's at 10% and struggling because you can see the
Looks
command burst effects coming up.
7%, looks like.
Yes, 7%.
Right. So some of the realities of people arriving to shoot at this first Keepstar is that you can't tell people not to come. So it's very much a people want in on this. They're going to get in on it. They'll get in on the fleets, and if not, they'll go and try to third party it. So, but yeah, it is a war of intimidation and success, and trying to succeed. They're not going to spare any expense or take any chances to try to lose a moral victory of some sort. So, yeah, overkill is not surprising here.
Yeah,
Oh,
Paulie, I will zoom the camera out once the explosion has started.
we want to see all the little flares that happened before. The graphics are kind of cool on this. They're going to happen slowly, but you'll see explosions happening all over the structure for a time, and then those little explosions turn into a giant explosion.
In theory, if the server is going to let me view it, if it doesn't,
Yeah.
I will make sure it does for tomorrow.
Yeah, all that in theory.
Yeah, the game sometimes I have seen it where it just refuses to do detonations. For example, when Perimeter was being changed from the Fortizar to the Tranquility Trading Towers, I didn't see any explosions on those structures because it was just too much in local. So
Hey, Billy, yeah, you're still here, and you're the owner and operator of the Tranquility Trade Tower and Perimeter. Have you heard any rumors about a group wanting to try to take that down recently?
How about credible rumors?
Maybe he's away from the.
Away from my push to talk for a second.
Oh,
There
okay.
is a group that's going to take a pot shot at it. They've been organizing on Facebook and such, so it's a pretty well-known kind of event that's taking place. It's it's going to be an interesting event to say the least.
yeah,
Nobody's too worried about it.
no, I've seen the fit of that Keepstar from ship scanning, and I believe it has somewhere in the realm of 800 million effective hit points.
Oh my God. Isn't a Titan these days like 52 million hit points?
Titan is about 30.
30. Oh,
Yeah, between
crazy.
25 and 30 on average. Yeah, it has an incredible amount of hit points. I think I initially worked out that if you was able to do the minimum DPS, it would take you over 4 hours to reinforce it through shield
Hmm.
and armor as well, because that's where the main defense is on that Keepstar, due to the armor plating and layering it has.
Well, good luck trying to destroy that. All right, tomorrow there will be another big fight happening at Lantorn between Snuff and Siege Green and their allies. The last timer on that Fortizar had a massive fight. It was dreadnoughts. It got up to 750 billion in losses. So it was huge, huge fight. Horde was involved in that one as well. Somebody give me a timer. We're probably within 10 minutes of this thing going up in flames.
Yeah, I've saw people mention that it's about 5% structure left, so it will be imminent. You can see the light, what I alluded to earlier when it was at about 50%, the lights are now going dimmer. They're also blackening out in the docking area. So
Yeah, we're at 4%. Yeah, so go ahead.
Someone mentioned earlier that it will be a Keepstar explosion at 1%, 1 FPS. I have you know I'm at 2.4 at the moment because of the amount of stuff that is on grid. I imagine many other pilots are at a similar position. Obviously, they have gone into quote unquote potato mode, which is the minimal graphics, no effects showing. So I've got effects showing so you can see the command bursts and we can see small little things going on. But the people engaged in this fight will likely have none of that set. They'll be going to use minimalistic graphic settings to try and achieve as high FPS as possible in this.
Yeah. So here's an interesting fun fact, says Leap Sufo. Fun fact, Lantorn, that's the system where the Snuff fight will take place tomorrow. And this Keepstar are on the same node. So Lantorn is going to be tie-dyed pretty hard. I'm not sure that's true. And I think he means tomorrow's Keepstar. So
I do know the node. So this node is reinforced. It may be that Lantorn is on reinforced as well, which means they could be on the same node. I do know the Lantorn node is shared on one of my alternate systems that I use for Sino routes.
Oh, really?
A 10-minute Sino took 55 minutes to end.
Oh, that's wild. Is it anywhere geographically near that system of Lantorn?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
It is. I think it's 2 regions away. I was like, why have I got max tie-dye? Looked on Zkill and I see a huge fight. I'm like, oh, I must be on the same node as them.
Oh, that's crazy.
And yeah, I lit a 10-minute Sino and it took 52 minutes of real time for it to end.
That's really interesting. Well, I think, this is a reinforced node and it'll be done and over by tomorrow when Lantorn begins. So I can't see how this fight here will affect Lantorns. But if tomorrow's node is also reinforced, tomorrow is IGE, I believe. If that node is reinforced and Lantorn is reinforced, then yeah, you might see some additional slowness.
Yeah, I would recommend that if anyone is involved in that Lantorn fight tomorrow in any sense, they do use CCP's reinforcement system to make sure that that node is reinforced. So there is as much chance as possible that the fight has as minimalistic tie-dye as needed.
Yeah, and Snuff has been involved with CVA lately, so they've been kind of partnered, and I think it's very interesting that we have conflict in Providence that has led to the destabilization of ProviBlock. CVA has parted ways essentially with it and moved on with Snuff. They're usually now operating in Placid. And that we have that conflict and this wars conflict both having high points at the same time, probably the same moment. That's unusual.
And yeah, CGJ Con asked what graphics card is the cameraman using, and Fonsuda does. I'm using a GeForce RTX 2070 Super.
Yeah, I got him in chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. The graphics are a little bit diminished because of this is not my camera or my computer. So we are seeing the image in high res on my computer, but Discord isn't willing to translate all that high definition over to OBS, and that's why you're seeing it a little bit lower. Oh, we just saw something explode there. That blue star, that flash.
Yeah, there's a small gang down there. You can see from the effects where there's a couple of small groups, you can see some warping effects, but the command burst, for example, you can see there's one right at the bottom of the screen, two in the middle, and one on the right, so you can tell there's roughly fleets there. But there are some small cap transfers going on just below the Keepstar as well.
We're at 1%, so this thing's demise is imminent.
Are goons expecting to lose all of Fountain, or are they going to resist?
Have you been watching these shows over the last month and a half?
I unfortunately have not.
Okay,
So
sit there quietly before I mute you. We'll answer all your questions at the end of the show. We have 1% left on this Keepstar. We're about to see this thing explode. This is a Keepstar put down by the Culture. And we saw it get sold to Goonswarm. It was used to stage many attacks in the north. The invasion of Tribute, this was one of the key staging grounds to move into before they continued on to the north. So this is a historic Keepstar. And yes, Fountain is at this point all but abandoned by the Imperium. It has essentially been taken over by Horde, on paper at least, but you have NC in there doing a lot of the work. Pandemic Legion as well. And Fountain's doing a lot of the intosising. This Keepstar here is being destroyed mostly by small fleets from around the coalition or super coalition of Pappy that is invading the Imperium. There it goes. We're seeing reports that it's exploding, and we hopefully will see some graphics here in a second. It may just disappear and turn into a wreck. It depends on what the limited graphics can render.
Well, Sully's given us everything he can. He doesn't have it turned down.
Yeah, the only thing I did turn down the effects earlier, however they are back on, and I believe because I can see other effects, it should still show, but we'll have to wait and see for the server to let every pilot know that it's happening.
Yeah.
There we go.
There's
the
it goes.
first explosion.
It's taking a while to render onto, let's see here. I am still seeing the Keepstar.
Yeah, but you see in the left-hand tower. At the
Oh,
top,
the
and now
small explosions.
Right-hand
Yeah,
tower
okay.
at the bottom.
Yeah, so these explosions aren't one big boom. It is a chain reaction.
Thank you. I thought that you guys had seen a giant explosion. All right, here you go. The explosion sequence has started. You're seeing the towers, large flames coming out of the tower, both the north and south tower, we'll call them. Wait, that's too much like a reality. Yeah, too much reality in that. Left and the right.
Yeah, let's go left and right.
Yeah, left and right towers.
I felt a great disturbance in the force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried.
Yeah. Oh, now off the top. Off the top of the right tower, and you're starting to see more explosions now in the body of the structure.
The good thing about tie-dye is even this is now slowed down, so we get to enjoy it for more.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we're seeing it thanks to you.
Yeah.
Oh, some of those explosions are bigger than others now. Multiple explosions in the center of the structure. Incredible. J5A Keepstar, in the process of being destroyed, is now riddled with
So the
explosions.
narrative is thanks attackers for cleaning up our abandoned Keepstar.
So because as well this system is under heavy tie-dye, we are still seeing the explosion. However, the kill mail has been generated. So people are saying that there are
Oh, there it
3,100
goes.
people on it.
We see the giant flash emitting from the center of the structure. It lit up the entire space sky, and it is in the
Oh,
process
are we getting
of
a blue
exploding.
explosion?
Yes, and this is a rare blue explosion. At least it was initially. It looks awfully yellow now. I think blue explosions are only 8% of explosions or something. You'd see the shockwave. My God, shockwaves. I'm terrified of shockwaves now after I saw the explosion in Beirut. But you see that massive shockwave going through. You will see debris flying. Here's the center point of the explosion growing, and that will grow to the size of the screen. And you will see inside of that debris flying along with it. There's a second shockwave ring of fire. And you can see that fireball growing, the top of it getting bigger.
You can see on the outside, just on the screen at the moment, you see a small scattering of debris, like it is following another shockwave out. Yeah, you're left with the main explosion.
We're going to get out of the way here.
The killer's been displayed on Zkill.
Yep, there's the kill mail linked in Twitch chat. 3,103 pilots involved.
Can you hide your frame rate? Is that possible?
Yep.
Looks like the birth of a galaxy.
Reported value 160 billion is.
Yeah, that's a standard value, though. That's no way to know.
Yeah, if you subtract the value of the structure itself, which may or may not be valid, that's listed at 100 billion. So everything that's not the actual structure was 60 billion in loss. So Keepstar plus 60 billion.
Then that is not accurate for the rigs. The
Oh,
rigs are
interesting.
not 16.6 billion.
You're right. Oh no, absolutely not. So let's subtract those as well.
So for the audience, we are not looking at a sun. That is the remnants of an explosion of the Keepstar in J5A. You can still see the explosion ring around it. And you're starting to see probably warps that were initiated long before. Those are subcapital ships flying out of the area.
So this timer incurred, this particular engagement was about 100 million damage.
100 billion,
of course,
by the way.
just the hull.
100 billion, right?
No, 100 million damage.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. 106 million damage done to the Keepstar because it had the rest of its damage was done previously, so it only had its structure remain. So the armor timer on the structure would have been more damage done due to the fit of it, but you can see it was a full militarized Keepstar.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're just exactly at the 2-hour mark, so we'll wrap up here in just a minute. As we see those drones start to withdraw, going back to their carriers. It's going a lot quicker than it was before. Look at those things warp out. Tie-dye will start to be lifted as people exit the system. What was local at? What's the tie point?
I think we was 3,396.
Yeah, basically 3,400.
I don't think we broke 3,400, but for all of a few pilots, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's safe to classify that as 3,400 because.
Yeah, let's just call it that.
That's a big, big force. You're going to see that probably again tomorrow and then the next day. Look for similar Keepstars to go down on Sunday, right around this time, and then again on Monday.
For those wondering, in terms of the pilot split from the kill mail, the average carrier pilot did 0.5% of the damage. So not even one person did 1% of the damage to this Keepstar.
Everybody was under 1%, huh? Yeah. Well, again, so let's talk a little bit more about the war. We may have some of the fleet commanders come in. They're awfully busy right now withdrawing troops, making sure everybody's safed up. So they may not make a return visit. But want to thank Killer B for coming by earlier and explaining some of the stuff that was going on, and Billy for talking about the war and giving it some context.
I'll leave us with the view of the Astra House with the carriers extracting.
Yeah.
And obviously, there is a couple of Titans on grid to enable sub-capital fleets easier removal from grids.
Yeah, they're giving them a boost out. And if they don't do that, then they are in danger of getting picked off on their way home from Initiative and the Goon Swarm that really can't defend this Keepstar, but they can sure as heck capture people on their way home and kill a few of them. So,
yeah.
So they're here waiting. So to avoid that, they're being jumped out by Titans. The big structure.
As well as one big thing is when you have a large fleet like this, leaving systems, the surrounding systems may not be reinforced, so you all cannot leave at the same time. So Titan bridges allow people to exit the battlefield away from where the fights are, away from where the large amount of people are, so that the servers don't immediately start to hit tie-dye from 3,000 people trying to leave system via the Stargate.
Yeah, those 3,000 players are dispersed as opposed to all moving together.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Boltec said in chat, shout out to all the Logi pilots that couldn't get on the kill mail. I don't think there would be many that came to this fight without a warrior drone in their drone bay, because everyone that showed up to kill this. So,
yeah.
But yeah.
I think they're going to work on kill mails soon. They've talked about the ability to put Logi on kill mails, and if they can do that, I think soon this will be a problem of the past. And I don't think you're going to get many Logi coming into a situation like this. With this many people, the being Logi is just a waste of time. It's not defended and stuff, so.
There'll be a decent amount of logistics for the small ships. You can see there's a couple of there's an apostle here on the screen at the moment. So there will be people that do bring logistics here. However, typically they will be on ults or let's say they will have a single small gun to shoot the structure with, because with this not being a massively defended structure, logistics is only to protect from the structure's damage itself.
Right, exactly. So you might have an alt going with your subcap or even your carrier. That's what I meant. Normally nobody's going to be just Logi coming to a fight this big, unless that's part of their identity and they only do it that sort of thing, then maybe. But normally you want to get in on the damage because the damage gets you on the kill mail. Again, that may change in the near future. CCP is probably able now to represent other parts of a kill mail, not just damage. All right, do we still have Cable? Is he in here? Did he take off? He took off, right? We'll have to talk to him tomorrow. Whoa, is that another Titan coming in there?
Yeah, that is. So
we have No 64 Life in chat says we ejected and traded ships with Logi pilots so that they could get on the kill mail.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So we saw a second Titan come in. You're looking at a Astra House. That's the big structure that you're seeing. Above it is an avatar. I can see there right above it. And then I think in the far right in the shadows is looks like a Ragnarok up there.
Yeah. So there's a Ragnarok that's bridging out a subcapital fleet as we speak. That's the red flashes going off. Ragnarok just signed it in on the top right as well. Likelihood to bring a bridge out as their fleet, and the avatar in the middle is just waiting for all the pilots to get in range to bridge them out.
Yeah, now withdrawing. So you're seeing that glow. That's the bridge activated, and you're seeing people jump out through that bridge. It's all very mystical. And 3,000 pilots. That's thousands of players showing up to destroy this first structure in this war. A hugely impressive number. For one side. And again, if I were the Imperium, I would be nervous about that many people showing up. Again, it's very particular, but that's a big, big, big force. That's bigger than anything we've seen previously in the history of EVE Online.
All right, I'm back.
Killer B, you want to give us a after action report? What happened?
Nothing, but pretty standard. You know, lots of carriers and lots of people. Yeah, killed the first Keepstar. I didn't know that, but this is actually the first Keepstar that has the actual Condi ticker. Obviously, it's not the first Goon Keepstar to die, but it is the first one that has actually died under the Goon Swarm Federation tag on Zkill. I did not know that at all. Oh, that's a pretty fun fact, I guess.
First
pretty
time
fun.
for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting.
Apart from that, nothing really happened.
That's really interesting because it kind of tells you the state of the war. Seeing a Goon Swarm Keepstar go down, even without a fight, is just I don't know. I don't see how that could be anything but a twist in the normal narrative of the game. The Imperium being the biggest group there is, and being able to defend their structures is a key part of their image.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Imperium is managing their members very well and the narrative very well, and I don't think that this is like a big blow for any of the Imperium members because they were told this was going to happen. They looked for opportunities to have fun when they could on these timers, like in CTEC N for the CTEC N ammo timer. They actually not CTEC N for the IGE ammo timer. I can't remember which one for one of them.
Yeah,
They showed up with 2 fleets, right? And they actually made it a bit annoying. They made it a bit annoying to reinforce the Keepstar because they were shooting fighters. We had to reposition. We had to like work around them, right? So they looked for opportunities to hurt us, and that's fair. That's fair game. I honestly, I think it would be it would be wrong to say something like, "Oh, look, the Imperium lost the J5A Keepstar. Clearly, they can't defend Keepstars, right?" Because that's obviously not the case. These Keepstars and Fountain are written off. They have been communicating that to their people, and that's just that's a realistic assessment of the situation. I think it wouldn't be a smart move to go like, "Oh, we're going to defend these Keepstars and Fountain," because realistically, it would be a very, very huge commitments that they probably can't hold up anyways, right? Without moving all their forces into Fountain, which they won't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But it is interesting.
But yeah, for us, it's obviously cool, right? Like our people, we contest or not, at the end of the day, people were excited. Lots of people showed up, and we got 2 more to come.
Yeah, and everything you've said sounds absolutely correct. This is not something that should show weakness in the Imperium. They've made tactical decisions to fight a little bit later. But it is interesting to see a Keepstar with a Goon Swarm flag on it go down. And as you were saying, it's the first time it's ever happened.
Yep. We'll have one more Keepstar tomorrow, and then one more on Monday. And then that's actually the way more exciting part about this is that, we are then going to get closer to the next stage of the war, whatever you want to call it, where Fountain's basically wrapped up to a degree. And we can then, look at relocating the PanFam forces. And I think that's when the fighting will pick up again. I think that's when things are going to be much more interesting again in this war.
Who are these bridging titans that we're seeing?
Just Bridge Titans.
Are they all from...
the avatar is Fraternity, the Ragnarok on the left is NC, and the Ragnarok on the right is
Horde.
Pandemic Horde.
Yeah.
Which will be the next.
Yeah, we obviously, whenever we deploy somewhere, we bring a group of people that are dedicated Bridge Titans. These people all have these people all have at least 2 Titans, right? They have 1 Bridge Titan and 1 main Titan that's with our main Super Cap force. Then we have like a crew of people that always bring their Bridge Titans along to deployments, because obviously it's something you need to have.
Yeah, sounds
And
like a
Ragnaroks are great for that because you can fit them and they'll be really fast. Most of these Ragnaroks are hyper fit, which means they warp as fast as a Dictor almost, and that kind of stuff. It's just funny to see them get around.
yeah, so they can get in place quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a cool job being a bridging Titan.
Yeah, honestly, I think it can be. Yeah.
Ragnarok just loaded in, belonging to another Pandemic Horde Ragnarok. So there are now 2 Pandemic Horde Titans here.
There's certainly something like the most loyal Bridge Titans that have been on us with deployments with us forever. They get some information beforehand. Usually, like for example, when we deployed to Hophip, we told our Bridge Titan squad like a couple of days in advance that we're going to Hophip, so they could already start taking their Titans towards there. We told them to go via downtime jumps. Obviously, some of them didn't listen, and some of them died.
Is that why they got caught? That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like Pitts was one of the Titans we told early to get his Bridge Titan down, and then he got caught by LSH on the way down because he didn't jump at downtime. But that's these things happen. It's fine too. But yeah, Bridge Titan is you're definitely involved if you're a Bridge Titan, right? FCs will always be in communication with you, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that. That's what a cool job.
As well, not only that, it's a lot of the times Titans are underused because of their size and their wealth and just their type of fight. For example, carriers was used in this fight, whereas Titans was not. So a Bridge Titan you get the satisfaction of actually using your ship as well.
Yeah.
For something it was designed for. A lot of these have been specially purchased, like Louis said, specially fit and designed to live and do just this, bridge out.
Yeah, this Ragnarok looks like a knife in my back with your camera angle.
They do get to Hor. Like today, I told my Bridge Rag not to Hor because I didn't want to risk it because he doesn't have a lot of tank, and the Keepstar hadn't DD'd in a while. But usually he can Hor with his Bridge Titan on like the structures we bash as well, which he does, right? You just have to be a bit careful with him. But so yeah, you actually get to shoot stuff with it too, at least structures, and I think it's a pretty cool thing to have.
Mm-hmm. That is how PK died. He was in a Ragnarok, got shot by a Doomsday accidentally.
Well, to be fair, he got killed by his own Keepstar.
By his own,
right?
his own Keepstar, right?
Yeah. He basically wanted to see how much damage the Keepstar he did, and he didn't turn his tank on, so he died. He didn't expect it.
It was not reimbursed, I remember.
Yeah.
Vince wasn't happy.
Yeah, because that was the first Keepstar killed by... Sorry, the first Titan killed by a Keepstar was on NC's bill. Well, op success here for Pappy. They destroyed the Keepstar in J5. We're going to see another one tomorrow and another one the day after that. And is there a 4th one coming out soon?
No.
Okay.
Oh, so we've only hit the Northern Fountain Keepstars so far, which were IGE, J5A, and C-Tech-N. Southern Fountain, we'll see.
So that's KVN and OTAC P.
OTAC P and YTAC 2, yes.
YTAC 2. That'll probably be the last one.
That would be the last one, yeah. Because honestly, I think that if they really wanted to, YTAC 2 is probably probably the only keeps that they can realistically defend if they would really try. I don't think they will really try because it doesn't really make sense for them in my mind to try to defend it. But I think they could if they wanted to, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well,
I said this on multiple occasions. We plan this week by week mostly, and we have a meeting again tonight with the coalition leadership, and then we decide what we want to do next week. But this week has gone according to plan.
It has. Okay. Is there overall is your schedule on the war going according to schedule, or are you behind or ahead, or what's that look like?
I mean, we were ahead of schedule for the most part. Like while and again, this comes down to whichever narrative you stick to. But in our we thought that Fountain fell a lot faster than we thought it would. And I know that the Imperium has been saying that Fountain held out a lot longer than they expected. So again, it depends a little bit on who you ask. But in from my POV, we're ahead schedule in the war schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, they did say that Fountain is what's just bonus. It was just it took longer than they expected for it to fall, which is surprising because it really it didn't fall within the first 2 weeks, I believe, but by week 4, Fountain was.
It was
completely
exactly
gone.
1 month. Funnily enough, like the 1 month after we deployed to Hop is when Init moved out of Fountain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I believe from the first reinforcement timer, it was 26 days. On the Fortizar, when the Fortizar was first reinforced, 26 days was their main defense.
Yeah. So Mitza SC says it took 50 dead Init carriers for Fountain to fall. And that sounds odd, but there's some truth to it because that was a pivotal change in the mindset of Initiative and how much they wanted to defend Fountain, I think. Because they
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree that LTIC A obviously on the ISK wise or whatever, it didn't matter, 50 carriers or whatever. But it certainly changed the mindset, I guess you could say mindset of everybody involved.
And that was something that happened because dreadnoughts had moved into the area on the Pappy side, right? To possibly inflict a lot of damage if Initiative wanted to escalate any fight.
Exactly. Like I think it was week 2 when Test came down with about 600 dreads in total to Hop Hip. And obviously we had all of the Pan-Fem dreads already there. So it gave us a ginormous potential dread bomb at least, which, changes how you can use supers these days, since nobody's really sure how much dread bomb can actually do to a super in Titan fleet.
And that to me is one of the most interesting aspects of this entire war, and why it will be different than any war before it. Is nobody knows what the new potential of the Dreadnought Titan relationship is.
Yeah. I just pray that when that day comes, that the servers actually hold up so dreads are not completely dysfunctional, right? We've had fights like BTEC R where the dreads just didn't work. One of the main reasons that N3 lost BTEC R was because Manny was the fleet commander of the N3 forces at the time, and he primaried dreads instead of Titans, which in a perfect world without tie-dye is probably the right call. But with tie-dye and the lag that was happening in BTEC R, it was the wrong call. Because generally at a certain stage of lag, what was that?
Discord does it every once in a while. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. At a certain stage of lag, at a certain stage of tie-dye, gun cycles and everything gets kind of wonky. And the one thing you could always rely on was doomsdays, right? But it's something that nobody really knew before BTEC R. I just hope that when that day comes where either we or they drop that big dread bomb onto that big super in Titan fleet to see how much damage can we do, I hope that the service will hold up. I hope that dreads will actually work, right? Otherwise, we still won't know.
Yeah, that was one thing about BTEC R. It was became obvious that the server was favoring or prioritizing Doomsday as opposed to anything else. And tie-dye was relatively new at the time too, so it was not completely understood what happened in tie-dye. Okay, you're seeing.
I'll be here again tomorrow.
Awesome.
Guess,
Thank
if you want to.
Absolutely.
I'll see you guys around.
Thanks, Killabee, for giving us the after action. Appreciate it. All right, and you guys may or may not have heard, I only have a few more minutes left before I have to go. But I want to say special thanks here to Sully, who was able to provide beautiful imagery for us and a ton of knowledge about what was going on in the field.
Hero of the day.
Yeah. Sully is part of Talking in Stations, so it's great that he was available. Fonsway is as well. So we have a great crew here, that very knowledgeable people who play this game. I would say it's a really good think tank of some of the highly knowledgeable players of the game, telling you what's going on, but giving you context on why it's important, and then giving you some historical facts about why it's interesting. And I think that's what makes Talking in Stations pretty special. That, and we show up, every day.
Well, that one's to your credit.
No, not alone, but yeah. All right, so is Sully still here? I want to say thanks again.
I'm still here.
Awesome, man. Just give us one last update on what's going on there.
So tie-dye is all but non-existent, and local is now down to 200 people. So it's just the last few stragglers leaving grid. We didn't even see the Keepstar wreck, because by the time the explosion finished, the wreck was long gone. That they generally don't last too long in these fights, because either people who have spies in the groups try to kill the wrecks quickly, or they just get salvaged and scooped, and everything that's inside it just disappears. So
Do we know what
it's
happened here?
now. We don't, unfortunately, due to the heavy tide. I think by the time the wreck would have spawned, it was just immediately gone. I imagine it was probably salvaged, because they do have a large amount of hit points. CCP did change that, because one useful strategy used to be kill the wreck of your old ships.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I imagine there was some loot got for the attacking side, not a large amount dropped. It'll be interesting to see if anyone did salvage it. But pretty much now it's just the last couple of hundred stragglers, and then that'll be J5A returning to a quiet state due to nothing here to attack anymore.
Those bridging titans will bridge the last fleets out, and then they will jump themselves and disappear. And that's how this battle will end.
The interesting thing is,
yep.
There used to be a Keepstar down there. Now there's nothing.
No, there's nothing. There's a few people looking. Yeah. What are those
couple
guys
of
doing?
Noob ships.
Just
a couple of noob ships, and a couple of little stilettos and stuff. But there used to once be. In fact, if I do this, so here we can see, just quickly before you have to see them at all, there is a ball of wrecks from both the PDS firing and various things going on. So the center of that used to be the Keepstar, and now
that's so wild. It's like a black hole. Something was there. Something was in the middle of that, but it's no longer there. Yikes. Okay, so we'll try to get Harvey, the guy that installed that Keepstar, soon. He's great to talk to. See if he can give us some more history on it. But remember, tomorrow is a whole nother Keepstar. I believe it's IGE. And then you have CTAC-N. I guess I was right about that originally. KVN will happen later, as will YTAC 2 and OTAC P. In total, 6 Fountain Keepstars are under threat in the next week and a half to 2 weeks. 5 billion dropped off this one. Thanks, Fonsway. All right, thanks. I want to remind you guys, if you like this coverage, if you like Talking in Stations, if you think it's valuable, please look us up. You have to go directly to patreon.com/Matterall. You can't find it any other way. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard, so I will write that for you. And support us there. Become a member. Jump into a secret channel that only Patreons are allowed in, and meet with me privately, but also some of these key figures in EVE Online. We'll have Q&As that are special only for Patreons. We're trying to do some added value stuff, so bear with us. Okay, that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much. We're going to raid over to continuing coverage with Ron, who's also covering this. Let's see if we can get Ron up and running. All right, he's got 500 people there, so you'll be in good company. Thanks for watching Talking in Stations. We'll see you tomorrow for the next Keepstar. Actually, Sunday show. And then later today, I can't fail to mention, we're going to have a wormhole show. It's going to be fantastic. There may be fireworks. You'll want to catch that. That is today at 2200 Eve time. So just about 3 hours. Check that out. Don't miss that. It'll be hosted by Tiberius. Take care, everyone.